Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's Badfish here with another episode of Gonegaming San Pedro. So welcome back to the city, guys. I have a couple of ideas of what I want to accomplish today. So I want to run through those with you real quick before we jump into the first time lapse here today. So, a few things. First of all, we're going to have to doctor up this is going to be our low density residential over here. We're going to have to fix up a lot of this shopping area that I just kind of painted down. So this all was added off camera more or less. I just painted down the residential, commercial, etc, etc. None of this was really placed with purpose, but as you can see, we have a absolute army of whatever building this is. So I'm probably going to go into the workshop, find some buildings that fit that blueprint. I think I already have a few too, and just change them around because that's just awful. So as you can see, I had an elementary school up here. We'll get to detailing that later. We do have our high school down here, which I do want to change around just a little bit, just to give it a little more character. But I think it actually looks pretty good as is too. And then I think what we're going to start with, though, is just fixing up a couple of these highways. So I did fix this one a little bit. As you can remember, beforehand, it was just a straight road coming straight down here. I changed it so it's on and off ramps that are separate. This one I brought out a little bit more. This one definitely needs some work. That curve is just... yikes. Yeah, that curve's gross. So what we're going to start with, I think, is fixing up the intersections onto the highway, or the off and on ramps, get those looking a little smoother, make them look a little prettier. Then we'll get around to probably detailing a little bit of either the high school, or start creating a park over here potentially. I think I am going to switch up the way the train line runs as well, just because that would be running right through where I want to do the park, so I might do it out here, so that way we can have the park in here. And then we'll do a little bit of residential at the end here. We're going to have low density on this area. So I'm going to jump into a time lapse. We'll get to fixing the highways, and I will see you guys on the other side. Alright guys, so full disclosure, I did not end up finishing the entire residential area today, or even really starting it. I know that I said that's kind of my goal in the beginning here, but I got stuck on one of my projects. I ended up finding a couple assets I really liked for the shopping center that I do when I fix up all those terrible army of whatever building that is. And then I had a couple ideas run off of that, so let me know what you think of it. The finished product looks really good in my opinion. Yeah, it's like an apartment complex / shopping center. But, let me know what you guys think. I think it's a little different. I think it's a little fun. I think it's kind of a unique thing. Let me know. But as far as the highways go, I really needed to fix that terrible curve because it was gross and disgusting. I have no idea how I messed that up because this is an asset I got off the workshop, and then I was using Move It to kind of move it around, and I must have put that curve in and just said, yeah, that's great. It was not great. Not great at all. So fixed that up, tried to smooth everything out, again putting some trees down. So I start out kind of just doing a little triangle of palm trees. The most annoying thing about trees in this game is, like, I get they want to do like a disparity of how they grow, they're not all going to be the same size, but the disparity between like the smallest of this tree and the biggest is wild. So that was a bit of a bother for me, but we get through it and move on from it. And I think the triangle ends up looking pretty good. I just ended up having to delete half a forest to get there. And I'm just, again, trying to smooth out the curves a little bit, make it look a little more believable. This one wasn't too bad. I ended up just extending out a little bit. It does some funky things with raising the ground up instead of just connecting for a while, but we get there eventually, and just, make it look a little more... I guess flowy, I guess would be the word. I wanted to just kind of flow into each other, and then just doing some traffic manager to paint out the lanes, make sure that the whole traffic circle works all right. So in a minute here, we're going to move on from the highways and start tackling that low density commercial. It was a mess, I will be honest with you. And I don't know why, but City Skylines, especially the vanilla game, when you have vanilla assets loaded, loves that one building. I've literally had entire commercial districts just painted with that one building with its giant obnoxious billboards. And you know, I actually liked that building at first, but I've seen it so many times I want it gone. So here I am deleting all of them. I want to do a little more of a planned out commercial district. I wanted it to be, you know, make sense with parking lots and look like it's a kind of like a strip mall, I guess. So I use these cool assets off the workshop. I think it's called like the Riverfront or something like that, by King, and they look great as far as like a little strip mall kind of deal. For this, I had a lot of inspiration of places in New England that I've been to that kind of have these strip malls that's all tied together by one central feature. That central feature will become apparent by the end of this video, or at least I hope it will. So yeah, I'm just running through, putting down some buildings, trying to make some interesting shapes with them that have it not all just be squares. So throwing in some L's and some smaller ones, some bigger ones, and trying to switch it up a little bit with the Panera there. Even though they're not the same building set, I think it ends up blending pretty well. And then just adding some planters and some greenery. That will become kind of a common uniting theme throughout this whole project. I wanted there to be like, this is almost built by one company, and they really enjoy having these kind of circular planters with the palm trees spread out to give it kind of an interesting look. And I really liked these curb pieces once I placed them down. I thought it looked nice. And again, here I am just making a quick forest to get the trees I want. If anyone knows like a mod that lets you pick the exact size of tree, I'd be down for it. I'm here for that. Let me know. And then back here, just adding some little trash areas, just kind of livening up the commercial, making it look a little more realistic. I think sometimes half the detailing battle is making things a little more grimy. Sometimes the assets are a little too perfect. You know, you want, like a Panera is gonna look nice on its facade, but the back's gonna be a little grimy. There's gonna be some thrown out bagels out there, you know, and you gotta accept the bagels in your life. So threw those down, going through making some handicap parking, and just different parking lots are gonna kind of be spread throughout here just to make it look a little bit more believable, because you know the vanilla parking on some of these assets is way too small. So I tried doing something here where I made a big lot, didn't work out. Ended up just spreading this back and just having the singular lot there. And then on the other side in a second here, I'm gonna make like a little loading dock for that commercial building on the side. And again, just copying, pasting those parking lots around and some of these like skid marks and things. So here's where the loading dock's gonna go. I know these were just regular doors at first, but once the trailers are backed up, you can't even tell. So I think it ends up looking pretty good. You know, you will have these little kind of loading docks spread out through shopping centers in the back. And again, just using Move It to copy and paste some of the assets so I don't have to keep plopping them all down. Right here, I think I tried to just make the drive-through a little bit more believable, so I had some arrows. I realized that's turning into the building, so I wanted them to go straight. And then just a little bit of tiles to liven it up. So again, we're just deleting through all these buildings. I'm actually going to delete the ones that I placed down right now as well, just because I think I wanted it to look a little bit more uniform once I looked at it. And then this AMC, that's going to kind of be the center uniting part of that entire area. So I really wanted it to play off of the movie theater. I've seen like a lot of these shopping centers that have these big movie theaters right in the middle. That's kind of like the main focal point, and everything else spreads out from that. So I wanted to try to capture that in this build. I think it ends up achieving what I wanted it to do. And again, these planters, I know it's not the most complex looking thing or anything like that, but a lot of these big developments, especially if they were developed by like one company, they will have this kind of landscaping that's very uniform. They'll have like one uniting feature throughout all of it. So that's what I was kind of trying to do with those there, just to really make it pop from the bird's eye view. I think once you scroll out and you see kind of all these trees lined up, you can kind of tell, oh, okay, that's where that shopping area is, you know, besides obviously seeing buildings. And then again, just adding a little more detail to some of these parking lots, putting bumpers in, and then of course, like I said, the trash and things like that, spreading those around. I really like this Barnes & Noble asset. I think it looks really good. It's very well detailed. And I'm not even sure what this other building I slapped to the side of it is, but I like the way it looked, so we kept it. And then right here, I'm just trying to, again, make that AMC the kind of like a big focal point for this area, adding in the general detailing as with the plants and things like that. And I do add just a couple more things just to make it look a little more alive in the front. But yeah, like I said, I wanted this to be like the thing that kind of ties together the whole space, and I think it ended up looking really good. And I left some trees in the road back there, I just noticed. I hope I deleted those. I honestly don't remember, so I might have to go check if my residents are all slamming into that tree when they round that corner. So just putting some live parking lots in now. I really like when you have like the big parking lots for the live parking lots, and this one does end up getting like very heavily used. There was a little bit of clipping, as you can see, so I did go ahead and fix that. I don't remember if I kept that in here or if I did that off camera or not. So if you don't see it, just know it is fixed. There's not as much clipping on that area. And then right here, I just wanted like some more greenery space. And again, just going through and trying to put a little detail on the bank here. So I ended up just adding lines that stretch out to separate the different ATM lanes. It's not much, but again, it just adds a little bit more realism to the space. And then just had like a little crosswalk going in front of it, so they know that pedestrians are going to come from there to grow into the bank. So if you're pulling out of the ATM, you don't hit someone. And really, like, all it is with detailing is sometimes just scrolling through your assets, especially if you're like me. I don't remember a lot of the assets I've subscribed to unless I just subscribe to it. So I will just kind of scroll through my props until I find something that I'm like, oh yeah, that could work. So like these little arcade games, found those, little cotton candy guy. And sometimes you'll get ideas just from scrolling, and that's kind of how I came upon this whole shopping center. I was just scrolling through my buildings and I found it, and so I decided to just put everything down and make a shopping center. So, you know, sometimes it's nice to plan, but other times I think just letting it come organically works out well too. At least for me, it does. So just adding some lights, and now what I decided to do is I wanted kind of a more uniformed apartment complex. So in my mind, this is an extension of the shopping center. The same company that put down that big shopping center wanted a big apartment complex near it, so that way they had customers coming through. And I mean, this is a thing you see in real cities too. You know, gentrification's real. So you'll have a lot of these kind of cookie cutter buildings just placed over things. They're very manicured, not necessarily pretty, but not necessarily ugly. So I just kind of decided to go with that and have this all kind of be one uniformed area. I think it mixes together well, and I definitely think once we have like a full-on town behind it, it'll blend in really nice, but also have a nice contrast. So it'll both blend and contrast, if that makes sense. It'll look good in like the grand scheme of things, but once you get down to the town level, like you can tell this is the more, you know, like this was a big development, I guess, would be what you would think, and it looks pretty good, I think. And I'm just adding a little extra here to the planters, keeping that same motif with the palm trees, but these little agave plants. I thought just added a nice little base. And I don't do it in the video, but I am gonna go through and add like chairs, beach chairs, and umbrellas and stuff to the pools just to make them a little bit more believable. And then what you're seeing me do right here is I was using Surface Painter to kind of green things up. I have to go back through later on and fix it, because it does, obviously, if you notice right now, destroy all of the sidewalks. So I do go back through and replace those. So now I was just trying out some trees. Besides being a horrible fire hazard, I really didn't like the way those trees looked. I think there was too much blockage of view, and it didn't fit with the rest of the development. So I went back to the old tried and true method of adding palm trees and little agave plants and things. So on the outside, I just do these kind of tendrily desert plants. I think it looks pretty good. I know it's very simple, but again, sometimes with detailing, you're going to add very simple details just to kind of bring things together. And a lot of these very planned out apartment complexes, they do have landscaping, but it's very minimal in my experience, unless it's like very, very high end. So I'm not trying to do anything crazy, I'm not trying to put like a fairy forest in between each building. But I think just those little details like the plants on the outside does add something. And then on the flip side of this, I will be doing a little bit more detailing in between as well. That was a little bit harder because you'll see in a second, we're very pressed for space on that side. So what I decided to do was start throwing down some of these tulips just kind of in front of the entryway and make them a little prettier. But then I ran into the problem of I was going to have to grow half these tulips on concrete. So I end up going through and adding these little planters as well. And I think it ends up looking really good. You can see it from pretty far out, scrolled out. You can tell that there's something in there. I know it's just a little detail. Like, honestly, after this episode, I don't know how many times I'll really notice it. But that's kind of the fun thing. You can work on these little spots and really make them look real and really make them have just that little extra pop. And then, it does play in. Eventually, all these little details, adding them up, once you put on your cinematics and stuff like that, you'll really notice a difference. So it is painstaking, it is time consuming, but I think in the end it is worth it in the long run if you really want a detailed city. And it's pretty simple details. Like, I'm not doing anything that anybody else can't do. So, definitely try this stuff out on your own saves. Just do simple little things. Start easy. You don't have to start by making like a 16-way intersection that flows perfectly, or a super detailed water utility plant like I did. Just add these little details to your residential areas, and I think you'll notice a big difference with how your cities turn out. So now I wanted to tackle the elementary school. So I put these two parking lots down and then realized that looks not the greatest, just because that is a lot of parking for a very small school. So I do think I end up taking one of them out and leaving one in. Yeah, I end up taking the guy on the left out and adding just like a little park, little sports area, and then in the back there I put a playground and just some like gazebos and things, so it looks a little bit more believable, like this is a town park slash, right next to the school. People come through here to play basketball or work out. And then back here is where like the playground for the actual elementary school is. So kept it pretty simple, just a couple of different like sandboxes and stuff, swings. I didn't really have like any planned out assets for a kids park, so I'm using just mostly stuff that's in the vanilla base game. But you don't need to add a ton of stuff to make it look believable. You don't need like a giant, huge park system coming through the back of your school. I mean, most kids just go outside and play with dirt or play kickball or something, so not a big deal. And then just adding some flowers in just to add some color back here, because it was looking pretty stark with all the dirt. And I do have a path running through here so people can walk through, and I tried to bend it so there wouldn't be a ton of clipping with the props I just put in. And then now I'm just adding some different trees. I try to cover up some of the trees on the vanilla basketball court because they don't really fit with anything else I put in this city, but it didn't end up working out too well, so I just left them and hoped it wouldn't bother me. And then this last apartment I'm placing, so in my head, you know, all of these apartment places, they always have like a show building or you know, an office. So what I did was I decided that this is going to be, obviously it's still a residential building in terms of like the game and what that declares it as, but in my mind I tried to make this one like their show building slash office space. So this is where, you know, they work out of, give people tours of the different units, etc. And I think it ends up looking pretty good. I tried to add like extra detailing to make it, you know, just pop a little bit more than the ones that I put out. So I add both the tulips and the plants, and then I end up putting like these big neon signs on the front. I think it's supposedly for like an insurance company in game, but in my head it's now a real estate company, so I think it's like Werner's, so maybe Werner's Real Estate. So I popped these on the front of these buildings just so they have that bit of advertisement. I might go through and add like, if I'm gonna look for like a wacky inflatable tube man, I think, and put those out, or like just some real estate like flags, just to add that little bit of realism to that as well. And then here again, just making the parking lot, adding in the handicap parking as well, and just trying to make it look a little believable. I do put some different decals down as well later on. And then finally, just finishing up this little commercial area. I didn't really like the way those buildings were laid out, and I thought maybe having like a bunch of restaurants would make sense. You know, you have this big shopping area. I think we have like maybe one restaurant mixed in, so putting some different restaurants, fast food and things like that on this side made a lot of sense to me. So you have your shopping area, and then right on this is like your restaurant row. And I think it looks pretty good. All I really did was add parking lots. I didn't, you know, do a ton as far as crazy detailing. So just parking lots, cars. I might go through and add like some trash and stuff later. I don't know, but I ended up really liking it. And then on the corner here, just throwing in a little gas station for people to come in and out of, and just putting down again some of those tire decals, so you can tell there's heavy traffic kind of coming in and out of the gas station, both into and out of the shopping center. But in a second here, we are going to jump to the final cinematic for the episode. This time lapse is just about done. I really just added some extra green space around the AMC, again, just to make it that focal point that you really focus in on when you see this area. And just trying to keep those same plants, so the same palm trees, same kind of color weeds and stuff, and long grass. And then just doing some housekeeping here with the pipes. Never pay attention to my pipe network. I am not following the roads. It is not pleasing to the eye. But for as much detail I put in, honestly, when it gets to the pipes, I'm like, oh my god, I can't right now. Oh yeah, and then I added this one last little building on this side. I totally forgot about this guy. So I just popped this in just to add a little bit more to the shopping center. It felt like this area was very empty. But like I was saying, we're gonna jump into the cinematic here in just a second as I finish up these last little details on this building. So I hope you enjoyed the build today. This is gonna just about do it as far as the actual gameplay section, but I will talk to you at the end of the cinematic. Enjoy! So that's going to do it for this episode of Gonegaming, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like or a comment down below. And if you want to see more San Pedro, definitely subscribe and check out my other videos.